At 12 p.m. today, every piece of metal on Earth vanished into liquid glass. Your phone didn't just break, it turned into a scalding puddle in your pocket. And what happened to the airplanes in the sky was even more terrifying. This wasn't a magic trick, but why did the world just turn transparent? By the end of this, you'll understand exactly how humanity survives a world without a single iron nail. We are entering the glass age, and the rules of physics just changed. You might think we're doomed, but the real surprise is what we build next. Transportation stopped instantly, engine blocks didn't seize, they simply melted into viscous, glowing syrup. Millions of people found themselves sitting on the asphalt as their cars turned into puddles. It was a silent, global traffic jam, but the danger wasn't just on the ground. In the air, thousands of planes lost their structural integrity at once. The aluminum skins became fragile sheets of glass that shattered under the wind pressure. Gravity became the ultimate enemy for everyone at 30,000 feet. No one was prepared for the rain of shards. Here is where it gets weird. Imagine trying to eat dinner, and your fork turns into a hot glass lollipop. People were burning their hands on objects that were solid seconds ago. Every kitchen became a minefield of molten liquid, but the biggest threat was actually invisible. The global power grid died in a heartbeat. Copper wires turned into glass fibers, which don't conduct electricity the same way. The world went dark, and every computer chip became a useless block of silica. We were suddenly disconnected from everything, and the silence was deafening. Simple things became impossible. You couldn't unlock your house because the key and the lock were now one single piece of glass. Entire cities became prisons where doors wouldn't open and elevators were stuck forever. People had to break their own walls to escape, but escaping to where? Bridges were the first major structures to fail. Steel suspension cables became giant glass threads that snapped under the weight of traffic. The Golden Gate Bridge didn't fall. It stretched into the ocean like a glowing ribbon. Thousands were trapped on islands. Then, the thermal shock began. This part sounds like a nightmare. If you had metal fillings or implants, they instantly became hot glass inside your body. The medical emergency was unlike anything history has ever seen. Surgeons had no metal tools left to help anyone, but a new kind of hero was emerging. We had to go back to basics immediately. Wood, stone, and bone became the most valuable materials on Earth again. People started using heavy rocks to smash through glass obstacles. The Stone Age was making a sudden, violent comeback, but we still had one massive problem left. Global trade vanished because ships are mostly metal. The oceans were suddenly filled with giant glass hulls that either floated or shattered against the waves. Food supplies were stuck in ports that were now just fields of broken glass. The hunger was coming fast, but the solution was hidden in the sand. Scientists who survived the initial chaos realized something strange. This wasn't a permanent change in the atoms, but a phase shift. The metal wasn't gone, it was just in a different state. If we could find the trigger, we could flip it back, but nobody knew where the trigger was located. Buildings became wobbly. Without steel rebar, concrete has no tension strength. Skyscrapers began to lean and sway in the wind like giant trees made of jelly. It was a slow-motion collapse that lasted for weeks. Then, someone noticed something odd about the moon. The moon started glowing. It turns out the metal in the moon's core had also shifted, changing its magnetic field. This field was interacting with Earth's atmosphere in a way that created a permanent aurora. The sky was beautiful, but it was a sign of doom. What happened next is even worse. What I haven't told you yet is the part that makes everything worse. The Earth's core is mostly iron and nickel. If the core turned into liquid glass, the planet's magnetic shield would disappear. We weren't just losing our tools, we were losing our protection from the sun. The clock was ticking. Radiation levels started to climb. Without the magnetic field, solar winds began stripping away our atmosphere. We had to move underground, into caves made of rock that wasn't affected. The surface of the Earth became a beautiful, glowing glass desert. But humans are stubborn. We started reinventing technology using ceramics. High-tech pottery became the new industry. We built engines out of heat-resistant clay and fueled them with pressurized steam. It looked like a steampunk world, but made of terracotta. This was our only way to fight back. Money became literally worthless. You could see right through a gold coin, and it would break if you dropped it. We went back to bartering with salt, seeds, and clean water. The entire economy was reset to zero in a single afternoon, but a discovery in a lab changed everything. There's one detail nobody mentions, and it's the most important one. A small group of researchers found a way to use sound waves to vibrate the glass. At a specific frequency, the glass started to show metallic properties again. We could hear the solution before we could see it. It worked. By blasting high-frequency sound, the liquid glass rearranged its atoms back into a crystalline metal lattice. We could heal our tools one by one, but we couldn't do the whole world at once. We had to choose what to save first. We prioritized the power grid in the hospitals. Teams of sound engineers traveled the world with giant speakers, turning glass back into steel. It was a slow, loud process that sounded like a constant scream, but the atmosphere was still thinning. We needed a bigger speaker. The plan was insane. We had to use the world's largest volcanoes as natural megaphones. By setting off controlled explosions, we could send a massive sound pulse through the Earth's crust. This pulse would reach the core. It was a one-shot gamble to save the planet. The explosion was the loudest sound in human history. Every person on Earth had to wear thick ear protection or go deaf. The vibration shook the very foundation of the world. For a moment, everything turned a brilliant, blinding white, and then, the green aurora faded. The magnetic field snapped back into place. The sun's radiation was pushed away once more. We had saved the atmosphere, but the surface was still a mess of glass and metal. The world was now a hybrid of the old and the new. Nothing would ever be the same. We didn't turn everything back. We realized that some glass structures were actually better. Transparent engines allowed us to see problems before they happened. Glass-reinforced buildings were lighter and more beautiful. We stopped being the Iron Age and became the Composite Age. Technology evolved in a weird direction. Our phones became transparent masterpieces that never overheated. We learned to value materials not for their strength, but for their flexibility. We became a civilization that knew how to pivot when reality broke, but there was a hidden cost. Every year on the anniversary, we turn off the sound machines for 1 minute. We watch as a single metal cube melts back into liquid glass. It's a reminder that our world is fragile and held together by nothing but a vibration. We are always one silence away from the end. The Glass Age taught us that nothing is permanent, not even the ground beneath our feet or the tools in our hands. Next time you hold a piece of metal, listen closely. You might just hear the hum that keeps it solid, because now you know the truth.